presence of an enemy, one looks for a fatal weapon and tries to escape. Oops. So, reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the chapter that we've all been waiting for is Gajendra returns to the spiritual world. The fourth chapter describes the previous birth of Gajendra and the crocodile. It tells how the crocodile became a Gandharva and how Gajendra became an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There was a king on the Gandharva planet whose name was Hu. Once this king, Hu, was enjoying with women in the water. And while enjoying, he pulled the leg of Devala Rishi, who was also taking a bath in the water. Upon this, the sage became very angry and immediately cursed him to become a crocodile. King Hu was very sorry when he cursed him that way, and he begged pardon for the sage, who in compassion gave him the benediction that he would be freed when Gajendra was delivered by the personality of Godhead. Thus the crocodile delivered them when killed by Narayan, was delivered when killed by Narayan. When Gajendra saw, by the mercy of the Lord, became one of the Lord's associates in Vaikuntha, he got 4 hands. This achievement is called Sarupya Mukti, or the liberation of receiving a spiritual body exactly like that of Narayan. Gajendra in his previous birth had been a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. His name was Indrajumna, and he was the king of the Tamila country. Following the Vedic principles, this king retired from family life and constructed a small cottage in the Malachala hills, where he always worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in silence. Agastya Muni, along with his disciples, once approached King Indrajumna's ashram, but because the king was meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could not receive Agastya Muni properly. Thus the rishi became very angry and cursed the king to become a dull elephant. In accordance with the curse, the king was born as an elephant, and he forgot all about his previous activities in devotional service. Nonetheless, in his birth as an elephant, when he was dangerously attacked by the crocodile, he remembered his past life in devotional service and remembered the prayer he had learned in that life. Because of this prayer, he again received the mercy of the Lord. Thus he was immediately delivered, and he became one of the Lord's 4-handed associates. Shukadeva Goswami ends this chapter by describing the good fortune of the elephant. Shukadeva Goswami says that by hearing the narration of Gajendra's deliverance, one may also get the opportunity to be delivered. Shukadeva Goswami vividly describes this, and thus the chapter ends. So we're on text 1. Shri Shuka Uvacha Tada Deva Shigandava Rameshana Purogama Mumuchu Kusamashram Samshanta Kamatantare Shri Shuka Uvacha Tada Deva Shigandava Rameshana Purogama Mumuchu Kusamas Ashram Sam Santa Kamatantare Shri Shuka Uvacha Tadadeva Shigandava Rameshana Purogama Mumuchu Kusum Asaram Sam Santa Kamatantare. Bolo. Shri Shukaruvacha Adivasi Gandava Rogama Mucho Kusamasaram Samsada Kamatadale Shri Shuka Uvacha Tadadeva Shikandava Rama Shena Shana Purogama Kusama Saram Samsata Santa Kamada Tatare Shri Shuka Uvacha Sri Shukadev Goswami said Tada at that time when Gajendra was delivered, Deva Rishi Gandhava, the demigods, sages, and Gandharvas, Brahma, Ishana, Purugama, headed by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, Mumuchu showered, Kusum Asaram, a covering of flowers, Samsanta, while praising, Karma, transcendental activity, Tad, that Gajendra Mokshana, Hare, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, when the Lord delivered Gajendra, king of the elephants, all the demigods, sages and Gandharvas, headed by Brahma and Shiva, praised this activity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and showered flowers upon both the Lord and Gajendra. Responsibly, please. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, when the Lord delivered Gajendra, king of the elephants, all the demigods, sages and Gandharvas, headed by Brahma and Shiva, praised this activity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and showered flowers upon both the Lord and Gajendra. But by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is evident from this chapter that great sages like Devala Rishi, Narad Muni, and Agastya Muni will sometimes curse someone. The curse of such a personality, however, is in fact a benediction. Both the crocodile who had been a Gandharva in his previous life and Gajendra, who had been a king named Indradyumna, were cursed, but both of them benefited. Indradyumna, in his birth as an elephant, attained salvation and became a personal associate of the Lord in Vaikuntha, and the crocodile regained his status as a Gandharva. We find evidence in many places that the curse of a great saint or devotee is not a curse, but a benediction. Om Agyanatimalanda Shagalanjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadata Swavadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhattavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, this is describing that Gajendra attained the four-arm form, and that the demigod showered flowers upon both the Lord and Gajendra. So the crocodile didn't really get any benefit other than that he just got back to where he was before as a Gandharva. What was the name of him? As a king? No, crocodile.
Oh.
Don't look. Name of the crocodile that we just heard, or hopefully heard. Begins with H, and the word's repeated twice, like the word. The first two letters are the same as the second two letters. And the first part of the word begins with H, and the second part of the word begins with H. And there's only 4 letters in the word.
4 letters?
Yeah, only 4 letters. And the other letter is U. Hoo-hoo. Yeah, King Hoo-hoo. And he was cursed. Who was he cursed by?
One of the rishis, I think. It was not a new.
Any idea who was cursed by? Begins with an A.
Was it Agastya Muni?
Agastya Muni. Oh, Agastya Muni was the one who cursed Indrajumna. So he had to become an elephant because he didn't receive Agastya Muni properly. So what was the name of the rishi that cursed King Hoo-hoo? Begins with a D. Something Rishi. Devala Rishi. So Devala Rishi cursed King Hoo-hoo, and Agastya Muni cursed King Indrajumna. And when he was cursed, King Indrajumna, okay. So it was King Hoo-hoo who pulled the leg of Devala Rishi. So the curse was that he would have to pull Gajendra's leg as a crocodile. So did the sages know that that was what was going to happen when they cursed them? When Agastya Muni cursed King Indrajumna, did he know that this was going to eventually be his opportunity to enter into Vaikuntha in the 4-armed form?
Because it says that the courses are not the actual courses, but the actual
Like a blessing.
blessing.
When the spiritual master chastises the disciple, then that's a good sign. That shows that he wants to bless the disciple. He just keeps flattering the disciple all the time, then it means that the spiritual master thinks that the disciple's not strong enough to take the actual mercy. So therefore he has to flatter him. And there's many evidences. What other situations are there in the Srimad Bhagavatam where a sage curses somebody and it ends up being a blessing? Nalakavara, Manigriva, they get cursed to stand naked because they were naked. They were too intoxicated to realize what they were doing. The women covered themselves and they didn't. So Narayana said, you're just like trees. You don't even realize that being naked is wrong, so therefore be a tree. And when Srila Prabhupada saw, they showed, I think John Lennon showed him pictures of him and Yoko Ono naked. And Prabhupada was disgusted. He said, they'll take birth as trees because of this. Any other cases where a sage curses somebody and ends up being a blessing?
It's not corruption counts. Not corruption is that all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Was
Yeah.
the son of
Shringi. Yeah. What was Shringi's father called? Was it Parashara? But yeah, that ended up being a blessing. There's also the case where Bhrigu Muni kicks Lord Narayan on the chest and he's cursed by the goddess of fortune, that the Brahmins will always be poor after that. I love that blessing. I suppose it protects them from being intoxicated by wealth. So the demigods were aware of everything that was going on, and they offered flowers, and those flowers were showered down on both the Lord and Gajendra, but they weren't showered on the crocodile. So why do you think that was?
the crocodile was killed by one lion. So he also went for liberation. But I'm not sure.
He didn't get liberation, did he? He went to Gandharva. He became a Gandharva. He didn't get liberated. So he didn't benefit, he just ended up back where he was. Other than that, when he became King Huhu as a Gandharva again, then he would have been obviously more careful. So he was blessed in that way. Anyone know what happened to King Huhu? They're just questions that should naturally, in the process of hearing means to try to understand. And in the process of trying to understand, there's always naturally questions to try and figure out what's happening, you know. It's a natural part of the assimilation process, is asking questions. If you're not asking questions, then you're not really assimilating it. So it's considered, the Falastuti is the end of the chapter. There's given all types of benedictions. And says, one who has this pastime. So it says at the end, that one who hears this pastime, he says, binding devotee, unto those who rise from bed at the end of night and offer me the prayers offered by you, I give an eternal residence in the spiritual world at the end of their lives. So that's called a Falastuti. It's when you hear the chapter and then after hearing it, you hear what the benefits are for hearing it. So that's nice. One time Srila Prabhupada had a builder and he was building, I think it was in Mayapur, and the builder, Prabhupada was speaking to him nicely, and he said to Prabhupada, I'm sorry that I'm very sinful and I can't really follow spiritual life so well. And Srila Prabhupada said, every time you make a building for ISKCON, there's a building being built for you in Vaikuntha. And also there's a place, as you go around Govardhan Hill, And you see devotees, what they do, they make a little house out of the Govardhan Shilas. And in the Govardhan Shila, you install your prayer. You leave it in that little house. Some prayer or some asking or some benediction or some blessing.
How is built from solid machines? Also, some trees in the door. The house built from these rocks.
They're built like it's like, looks a little bit like Stonehenge. You've got one Shila there, one Shila there, one Shila there, and then a Shila on top. And then they install their prayer, some blessing. So it's interesting that how aware the demigods are of what's going on in the universal affairs, and that's why they can accept worship. If you're praying to Indra or you're praying to Vayu, then they're aware that you're offering that prayer to them. Interesting. And Shiv Ramaj was just giving a class a few weeks ago. How is it that the Supreme Controller is controlled? And he was saying that when Krishna is being chased by Mother Yashoda, he doesn't think he's God. He just thinks he's a little cowhead boy. That's all he thinks of himself as. But what's inconceivable is, at the same time, he's aware of everyone's prayers that are being offered to him. Which is inconceivable, isn't it? He's aware and not aware at the same time, simultaneously, one and different. Achinta, inconceivable. But essentially, he doesn't want to be God, he just wants to be a cowherd boy, just wants to be a simple living entity. As soon as that you accept being the Supreme Personality of God, then you have to accept worship and responsibility and reverence. And that's not the highest pleasure. The highest pleasure is to be running around. Not long now, 26 minutes. You got to go at 1:15? Oh, how come? You're going to go?
I'm going to get changed.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Okay, so any questions? So the highest pleasure is to be in the countryside amongst beautiful associates, the trees and the cows, and walking through the grass, completely carefree, killing the odd demon. And people are all attracted to the thinking. They see pictures of people in yachts in the Mediterranean with some beautiful woman drinking champagne, wearing a gold Rolex watch, and they're thinking that's the highest pleasure. And then Krishna is just on the land with the cows, roaming around by the river Jamuna, enjoying living exchanges with his friends. And that's actually the highest. And if we can become aware of that, then we'll lose attraction for anything else. Vikriditam Rajivadibiritam Vishnu Sadam Vitulushanaya Datavanyanja Bhaktam Param Bhagavati Patilabhikama Hidrogamasvapa Hinoti Achere Nadira. It says one who hears with faith or describes with faith the Lord's living affairs with the young damsels of Braja, he attains pure devotional service. He quickly becomes sober and conquers lust, the disease of the heart. From the 10th canto. I think it's Lord Brahma's prayers. So the thing is, as soon as you can have faith that these pastimes are real, then you're already there. You're already in the spiritual world. It's so easy to just go into that realm if you can just have that faith. And faith can be cultivated by acquisition of knowledge, association of advanced devotees, and practicing devotional service seriously with absorption. One can gain faith. One can, by perceiving Krishna, obviously one gains faith. You know. If you haven't had that perception, pragyaksagarvam, by direct perception, if you haven't had that direct perception, then that's basically what religion is. Religion is just believing in things and then hoping for the best, hoping it's real, following some kind of moral code. But that is very, very preliminary in terms of God consciousness, Krishna consciousness, where you're able to connect and perceive the presence of God and interact with Him and His pure representative. And Krishna is saying, when you can become aware that I am the supreme reality, then that's when that faith, that deep faith will be there. And we can have faith in a seedling form. Like if you have a mango, the mango may not be ripe, it may be green, but if you hold on to the mango, it will ripen in due course of time. So for us, we have the seed of pure devotional service. We have to cultivate that. And then it will become ripened fruit. Nigama kapatorogalam, sukhamukit amitam drabitam, pimita bhagavatam rasam alayam, moho aho rasam kabhovi babaka. O expert and thoughtful men relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruits of the desire tree, Vedic literatures that emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, it has become more tasteful, although it was already relishable by liberated souls.
I go.
Yeah.
Is it recommended for everyone at any stage to listen to these pastimes? Because in order to help with fighting with the lust, these unwanted things.
Well, Prabhupada said it, and Shiva Ramaj in Srila Bhakti Chintamani, he says, try it, and if it does, then fine. And if it doesn't, if it increases your lusty desires, which is what happens, people, they go directly to the 10th canto and they paint licentious pictures of what they imagine is going on in a mundane way. And that just increases their lusty desires. That's why it says, if one can hear it with faith, if you can hear it with faith, then it will immediately remove. Because the lusty desires that we have are trying to put ourselves in the situation as Krishna and having somebody play the part of Radharani, and then in a very gross, perverted way, we try to imitate. But if someone's aware of how beautiful and perfect the conjugal rasa is in the spiritual world, how it is free of all material anibity, there's no selfishness there, there's no bad qualities, it's all just pure love, you know. If you're able to appreciate that, then you'll see that the perverted counterpart is not very attractive. But in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says in the purport that because the Mayavadis say that the Adi Ras, this relationship between Krishna and Radha and the conjugal Ras, because that's false. He says indirectly they've emphasized material sex life as the all in all. So you've either got merged in the oneness, which compared to material romantic liaisons doesn't seem as attractive. So then people are told, well, the ultimate beyond this is nothing, it's just like a white light. So then they think, okay, well this is the best they can get, and this is this material relationship. Whereas a devotee, he's aware that there's another conjugal ras, which is completely pure and perfect and eternal, and has no material inebrities. And he becomes more and more aware that that's the ultimate reality. And that he sees these other things as just very pale reflections. Because either Krishna is God, or if he's not going to be God, then somebody else has to fill the post. Somebody else has to be the center of enjoyment. So it's not going to be Krishna, and it's going to have to be us. So then we try and... so the more we're aware that that's such a ridiculous proposition, and the less we're attracted to it. That's why we have to have knowledge. Knowledge and renunciation. What's the Srimad Bhagavatam Krishna Punya Shravana Ketana Vidyadan Vajrani Vidyanoti Suritsitam. That by rendering devotion service to the personality of Godhead, one acquires cautious knowledge and detachment from the world. Do you know that verse? Srimad Bhagavatam Krishna. Savekam Samparodam. It's from the, I thought I had the first canto there. I think it's the second chapter of the first canto. Savepam Sam. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janatiya Suvairagya Jnanam Chaya Hetukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of God, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires cautious knowledge and detachment from the world. Vasudeva Bhagavate Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Yashu Vairagyam Pyanam Chaya Dahetukam. So that's like the byproduct of being Krishna conscious, is that we gain knowledge. And the real knowledge is to become aware of Krishna. That's the ultimate. He's the ultimate knowledge. He's the absolute truth. All other truths that we learn and call knowledge are relative truths. Like somebody once said to Srila Prabhupada, do you know everything? And Prabhupada said, yes. And immediately the person said, how many windows in the Empire State Building? And immediately Prabhupada fired back, how many molecules in the mirage? Meaning, if you know the absolute truth, then why do you have to learn all this relative nonsense, you know? What good's that going to be, knowing how many windows there are in the Empire State Building? What we want to know is Krishna. And by chanting, we get a chance to perceive the reality that Krishna is there, and that he's aware of us, and that he can reciprocate with us. But we have to give our consciousness to him. And it's helpful when you're chanting, if you chant in granthas, which is in sets of 4. So the first 4 rounds, you're just kind of waking up really. Then the next 4 rounds, you're starting to try to focus on the mantra. And then from 8 to 12, we should be starting to connect with the mantra, start to become aware that this is not an ordinary sound vibration. And then 12 to 16 is like your reward for trying to focus. But if you're trying to chant and you can't get into it in the first 4 rounds, and then you become distracted, then you won't get that reward at the end for staying resolutely determined. Like Sankirtan as well can be like that. Nobody's stopping in, and the mind starts to think of doing something else or going somewhere else. But if you continue on, then there can be a breaking point. Like I was saying to Ishan yesterday, if you keep sucking the lozenge, eventually there's a honey center and it will come through. And you get this golden hour where everything just happens so easily. But if you spit the lozenge out and say, oh, there's no honey in this, then you won't get it. You won't get that golden hour when the honey just flows. And then the more you have faith in that, the more you realize, okay, just a question of time, keep going, be enthusiastic. Krishna can send anybody along. And both Glasgow and Edinburgh, actually, you could meet anybody. You could see famous film stars walk through there sometimes. Famous persons. Krishna will send them along. You never know who you're going to meet or what's going to happen inside yourself. So don't listen to your mind, because the mind will always tell you what's going to happen. It's going to be absolutely terrible. Everyone's going to be so rude. No one's going to be interested. This is completely boring. You're going to die of pneumonia. The mind will never say, someone amazing is going to turn up any minute, you know. The intelligence can say that. You have to get the intelligence working. Then you can push aside what the mind's saying. First word a child learns is na, negative. So by default we're negative, and with intelligence we have to be positive. We have to override all the valid reasons for being negative. There's so many valid reasons for being negative, but intelligence uses that intelligence to be positive, to see, okay, what's good about this? What's the lesson I'm supposed to be learning from this? And if you learn the lesson, wherever the lesson is, then that's great. And you don't learn the lesson by changing the situation. And then when you learn the lesson, you change, and then automatically the situation changes. So it's you that has to change. You have to become very malleable to whatever it is Krishna is wanting from us today, you know. So it's a nice pastime, Gajendra. There's problems and difficulties, but in the long run, everything works out for the better. And that's what it's like in Krishna consciousness also. In the long run, everything works out for the better. But you have to be in it for the long run. If you're in it for the short run, then things can go pretty weird, you know. You have to take things through to the conclusion, and the conclusion is always that it's for the better, whatever it is. And we have to stick with it to realize that it was for the better. Any questions online? No one online? No one complaining about the microphone? Okay, so we can end here. Are you?
Hare Krishna. I noticed maybe yesterday is that when you get a breakthrough, maybe again into that right mood, then even when people say no, it seems like a good thing, you know. It's like you're kind of like it's just this, you know.
Yeah.
And then when you kind of surrender them like that, then Krishna can send more. You don't discriminate between like these things. You're like, okay, this is what it is, and
You get affected negatively, then when you approach the next person, although you think nobody knows what happened in the last exchange, people have got this sixth sense, and they can tell that somehow or other they can tell that the last exchange you had with the last person wasn't that good, and then that puts them off, and they don't quite know why themselves, but they're just like not interested. And the more you can really mean it when you say to people, okay, hey, listen, have a nice day. Here's a little flyer, Ishan. Here's a little flyer, come along and see us. Then you leave them in a positive way, just the same as if they'd given you £100. So you don't lose any energy from that, you still feel good. And then when you approach the next person, they get the feeling that you had a really good exchange with the last one. And then they're more attracted. That whatever it is you're doing, it must be good because you look happy about it. So maybe I can do it as well. You know? There was one devotee he used to stop people, and he'd say, you know, "Can you help?" And when the person says, "Oh," he wouldn't even let the person finish. He would just turn, and the person would be like talking to the back of his head, you know. And then he'd approach the next person because he was so rude with the people. Then that built up like a bad feeling that the people were left feeling offended or feeling like they'd upset him and then feeling guilty about it. So creating a really kind of negative energy, a negative exchange. And only the people that actually helped was he going to be nice to, you know. So then the whole thing becomes really false. And then you start feeling false as well. You're making out that you're a spiritual person, but you're actually just a materialist. You have a certain objective, a certain agenda, and you want these people to help you achieve it. And if they don't, then okay, I've got no compassion for you. I'm happy if you walk away and fall down a manhole. So it shouldn't be like that. And then the real mood of Sankirtan is one of compassion, not just for people that help us and take books, but compassion, even more compassion sometimes for people that are not able to engage for whatever reason. You know? There was one that stopped, and she didn't have any money, but she seemed like a really nice person. She wanted to get into spiritual things, so I gave her a book and says, "Well, read the book and give a donation the next time if you like." Because a few people had given donations and hadn't taken books. So I thought, okay, I'll give one to you then. And that gave her a nice impression that, oh, these people are here to give, not to take, you know. It's much easier to do Sankirtan when you're trying to give than when you're trying to take. And you can get, when you're detached from the result, it means that even when the person doesn't give what you want or take what you want, then you're okay, you're still okay about that. It's not a problem, okay. Maybe next time.
yeah, I feel like it all becomes about that, just having a good exchange. Because especially in the yesterday, it was just like, you know, saying everyone hi, being nice, and then when someone stops and it's like extra, you know, like
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's how you can build. Once that foundation is there, although in the beginning you may not be doing so big or so huge, that's an important foundation to develop. Once that's there, then it gives such a nice taste that you always want to go out again and experience it again. Otherwise, the reaction for being fruitive is that you become very miserable and discouraged when you're not getting what you want, because you're not understanding that that's not the goal. to have that and then have people consider you very important. That's not what it's all for. You know? It's you trying to get in the mood of Lord Chaitanya, who's compassionately sees so many jivas are going to lose the human form of life, and he's intervening to try and save them. You know? Lord Chaitanya can see what's going to happen if they don't take up spiritual life. We can't see that, but we can understand that that is the case, you know, and be compassionate that way. We realize, you know, these people are in big trouble. They need something auspicious, even if it's just that they're going to get a human form of life again, and then start on their spiritual life. Okay, ISKCON Guru Vrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi, Haribol.
Peace, guys. Adhoksaja Krishna Guru ki. Jai.